sun. If you wanna drop by, even my phone's on. If you feel like calling me later tonight, keeping the bed warm, I do. Though it's wrong to hold on, I try to come up with 100 of reasons not to, leading you back to my heart just by thinking of you. But you keep coming over, though deep down you know that you're wrong to hold on. I wish I could unmiss you, reverse the time so I could unmeet you. It would have made it so much easier, easier. If I could unmiss you and I miss you, and you could unmiss me too. I only say good things in front of our friends. I don't wanna talk shit, cause what if we wanted to try us again? Telling her nothing about you, cause it's wrong, and I should be strong by now. I try to come up with 100 of reasons not to, leading you back to my heart just by thinking of you. But you keep coming over, though deep down you know that you're wrong to hold on. I wish I could unmiss you, reverse the time so I could unmeet you. It would have made it so much easier, easier. If I could unmiss you and I miss you, and you could unmiss me too. I wish you could undo all of the things that made me fall for you. It would have made it so much easier, easier. If I could unmiss you and I miss you, and you could unmiss me too. Oh, I wish I could undo you. Oh, I wish I never met you. I wish we never met, and I could just forget. I wish I could unmiss you, reverse the time so I could unmeet you. It would have made it so much easier, easier. Yeah, if I could unmiss you and I miss you, and you could unmiss me too. I wish you could undo all of the things that made me fall for you. It would have made it so much easier, easier. If I could unmiss you and I miss you, and you could unmiss me too.
I've been thinking about my father lately, the person that he made me, the person I've become. And I've been trying to fill all of this empty, but fuck, I'm still so empty. Yeah, I could use some love. And I've been trying to find a reason to get up, trying to find the reason for this stuff. In my bedroom and my closet, the baggage in my bedroom and my car. Heart is still so dark. Modern loneliness, we're never alone, but always depressed. Love my friends to death, but I never call and I never text. La-di-da-da-da, you get what you give and you get what you get. So modern loneliness, we love to get high, but we don't know how to come
Little do you know how I'm breaking while you fall asleep. Little do you know I'm still haunted by the memories. Little do you know I'm trying to pick myself up piece by piece. Little do you know I need a little more time. Underneath it all, I'm held captive by the hole inside. I've been holding back for the fear that you might change your mind. I'm ready to forgive you, but forgetting is a harder fight. A little do you know I need a little more time.
I'll wait. I love you like you've never felt the pain. I'll wait. I promise you don't have to be afraid. I'll wait. Love is even here to stay. So lay your head on.
There's a feedback form that will be passed out with a QR code after the Q&A session. We also would like to ask for your discretion to mute your microphone throughout the event. Thank you very much.
This time it don't feel like you want it all. Did I do something wrong to make you go? Said I would know when it's all good to fall. Now I just need you here to hold me closer. 'Cause I don't want another hurt to fill the hole that you left under my covers for me to go cold. I don't wanna miss somebody who's not missing
Sunrise with you on my chest. No blinds in the place where I live. Daybreak, open your eyes. Cause this was only ever meant to be for one night. Still, we're changing our minds here. Be yours, be mine, dear. So close with you on my lips. Touch noses, feeling your breath. Push your heart and pull away. Yeah, be my summer in a winter day, love. I can't see one thing wrong between the both of us. Be mine, yeah. Anytime, anytime. Ooh, you know I've been alone for quite a while, haven't I? I thought I knew it all. Found love, but I was wrong. More times than enough. But since you came along, I'm thinking, baby, you are bringing out a different kind of me. There's no safety net that's underneath. I'm free, falling all in you. Far from it, who, what, how they appear. Yeah. Trapped up on a tightrope, now we're here. We're free, falling all in you. Fast forward a couple years, yeah. Growing up in the place that we live. Make love, then we fight. Laugh cause it was only meant to be for one night, baby. I guess we can't control what's just not up to us. Be mine, yeah. Anytime, anytime. Ooh, you know I've been alone for quite a while, haven't I? I thought I knew it all. Found love, but I was wrong. More times than enough. But since you came along, I'm thinking, baby, you are bringing out a different kind of me. There's no safety net that's underneath. I'm free, falling all in you. Far from it, who, what, how they appear. Trapped up on a tightrope, now we're here. We're free, falling all in you. Every time I see you, baby, I get lost. If I'm dreaming, baby, please don't wake me up. Every night I'm with you, I fall more in love. Now I'm laying by your side. Everything feels right. Since you came along, I'm thinking, baby, you, yeah, are bringing out a different kind of me, yeah. There's no safety net that's underneath. I'm free, falling all in you. Far from it, who, what, how they appear. Trapped up on a tightrope, now we're here. We're free, falling all in.
Testing mic 1, 2, 3. Hello everyone. Welcome to this forum. My name is Muhammad Azharul bin Muhammad Azhari and it is my pleasure to be the moderator for this forum. The topic that we are going to discuss tonight is the contribution of science and technology in COVID-19. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Our first panelist is known to be a lovely and charismatic student of FST. Give a warm welcome to our very first panelist, Mr. Harivalagan Sivakumar, our president of PMFST and also a student from material science. How are you today, Hari?
Thank you for the warm welcome, Azrul. I'm feeling good, and I hope you are feeling good too, Azrul.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harivalagan. Next is our second panelist, Miss Hashwini Tamisilvan from physics. Hello, Hashwini. What are you up to these days?
Hello, Azrul. Nothing much, just attending online classes. Thank you for
Oh,
asking.
me also, as a student, right? So, okay. Next is the third panelist in the house, Mr. Matthew Ernest Paul. He is one of our fantastic debaters from physics as well. Matthew, are you ready to share your insights for our today's topic, which is the contribution of science and technology in COVID-19?
Hi Azrul, thanks for having me here. Yes, I'm very excited for tonight and I hope all of you watching are excited as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matthew. He looks so excited today and so am I. Last but not least, let me introduce our last panelist for today, Mr. Yashvin Kumar, our another extraordinary debater from genetics. Yashvin, how are you?
Hello, Azarul. I'm feeling good and I hope you're just as well. I hope everybody here is feeling just as good and excited for our forum today.
Alright, thank you, Yashvin. He looks so cute with the little bow tie. Alright, let's proceed to the heart of this event. So, guys, COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019 has impacted every segment of life like commercial establishment, education, economy, healthcare, transport, and many more. The outbreak is a major destabilizing threat to the global economy. As of today, we realize that the contribution of science and technology at this time of crisis linked to the coronavirus disease is the key in facing current health challenges. Today, we are going to discuss the contribution of science and technology in different sectors or segments, as there are many of them that had to brace for the impact for COVID-19. After that, we are going to compare the situation between before and after COVID-19 towards the contribution of science and technology in these sectors. So as first, COVID-19 has forced the education sector to learn the beauty of the online education system. There are some of the changes that we have faced during COVID-19. So, Mr. Harivalagan, mind sharing more about other changes or contributions during COVID-19, especially in education of science and technology?
Thank you very much, Azrul. It's my pleasure. So first, I'm gonna say hello everyone out there in the YouTube and also maybe in this Microsoft team as well. So I just want to say that science and technology is contributing a lot in education during this COVID-19 situation. And before I start explanation, can I share my slide, Azrul? Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Azrul. So let me talk a little bit about the problem. So we all know, right? We got a pandemic right now, and the government has prepared this MCO, Malaysia Movement Control Order, and this preventative measurement is not only in our country but the rest 161 countries. And this pandemic is good. And for starters, as an individual, we have to respect these restrictions, and we have to make sure we're able to stop the domino effect from the virus itself. Am I right? But the problem is that we got 1.5 billion children around the world, and this is true. This is based on WashingtonPost.com. It's a factual. So if we got 1.5 billion children getting virus, and that is really dangerous. But what can we do? And that is why we have to take a real movement. As a student, I think that accepting this condition is our way to fight COVID-19. But to cope the problem, um, distance learning was introduced and has brought low motivation, low development of oral skill and social interaction. So we can see that there's a depression, there is like causing like depression, anxiety issue, and all those kind of stuff, right? So we have to prevent those kind of stuff, and that is where science and technology going to give their contribution, making sure this kind of stuff able to be overcome, and we could provide a better platform, a better medium. So for the record, in a Bangladeshi university, they have done a research where they find out that they are suffering from depression during pandemic. So that's all from the problem statement. So let's find the solution. So what as government or around the world, what have education institutions, all those kind of people prepare? They prepare virtual learning platform. And this is kind of like the distance learning. Even right now, this program is virtually done, right? We should be doing this physically, but we're doing this virtually. So this is the alternative that we are taking. So this is something that I think is good. But these kind of things is the one that what I'm saying that we're going to have problem with low motivation, low development of oral skill and all the soft skill because we are not interacting with each other directly. So what we can do to improve this virtual platform, and this is where I can say we can do this by first following all the special features we have in this platform itself. So we know Microsoft Team is amazing. So like right now, even I can share slides towards people right there outside YouTube, maybe hundreds of people, thousands of people. So this is one way I can share my way of knowledge, and it is interactive. People in the YouTube can comment what's their opinion and those kind of stuff. So we also got like whiteboard, like magic whiteboard. So let's say I and my friends in a group, we want to discuss together rather than just typing out their own opinion. We can have like a whiteboard like this, like you can see in this animation, and we can see that everyone can give their own point. They can scribble on it, they can put pictures on it. So this is like a way, an interactive way, and this honestly helps in depression, helps in making us feel more motivated to study. Isn't that, Azrul? You feel more motivated in this way?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah,
feel
that's
it
right,
more
Azrul.
interactive.
Yes. Okay, so this is how we're gonna use the features that we already have in. But what's next? What else can we do? Yes, we can use animation. So based on what I researched, animations can gain great attention recently and found to be effective instructional tool, and this is from Near East University. So what are they saying is that just imagine you're learning on a higher level of dimension of knowledge. For example, maybe you're learning about light refraction. Before this, you were just learning about square and triangle, and now you're learning light refraction. And maybe your mind couldn't visually imagine it as the lecturer been explaining to you, or as you read the diagram, you couldn't visually understand. So this is where animation, maybe a 3D animation, a 2D animation, and you can see how it works. And this is how we use animation to help us. So we can use this in the cartoon term as well, and this is really effective and can be more easy to understand. And I think this is something that already can see people using this kind of method, this kind of approach really wide. So let's go on for the next point. What I think we should do. Okay, this is my favorite point. So fun learning. So I'm pretty sure you guys all play games. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm a big time gamer and I play game whenever I feel it, whenever I feel like down, whenever I feel I'm free. I just gonna play video games. So people like to have this perspective where you play video games is just wasting your time, wasting your hours. But what if we can use this video game and implement education or maybe our studies material in our video game? For an example, right now you guys are looking at an image of Remix. So Remix is a method, not method, I mean a platform, right? So it's a platform where you can learn coding for the children and the kids out there with just dragging down the direction. So maybe you can put when I press this button, the character will move. So you can put the condition if and not, or like that kind of stuff. So those kind of way is a great way to not only bring some fun, but also bring some education towards the people in a younger age. So what's the science behind it. So the science behind it is that in our brain, right? Our brain, we got this kind of nerve connection. I'm not a biologist, but I just gonna give you a brief understanding. So we got nerve connection, and this nerve connection, there is exchange of chemical like dopamine. So this kind of stuff makes you feel rewarded, feel you more satisfied and happy. So imagine you're playing game, you're feeling rewarded, plus you're gonna gain the knowledge. This kind of knowledge is gonna be interactive, it's gonna be stuck in your mind, it's going to be really approachable. So I'm gonna give you a great example. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard Assassin's Creed. So it's a game about history, right? Historical figure, historical moment. So I'm a big time gamer playing this game as well. So what I can see is that based on certain research, they find out that with this kind of games, people could learn about the history even in a more fun manner. And this is something that I think amazing, and I think that this is something like people will really appreciate. So I like to go talking about the next thing, and this is something I think I'm really excited about it. So this is called VR and AR learning. So we know what's VR is virtual reality, and to the people out there, AR is augmented reality. So what is this two thing? VR is where you are given a perspective of an image, and you are given a surrounding. So when you're looking at the image, you feel like you are there. That's the virtual reality. The reality is fake. Is rendered. The next is AR, augmented reality. So augmented reality is where you're looking at something real, and there's an overlay graphic on it. So it's blend with the reality that you're having. So what does this two thing can do? It sounds so sci-fi, but it is today's technology. So what does this two thing can do? So I'm gonna tell you a short story about my friend who's studying medic. So my friend studying medic at home because of the pandemic. So he said to me he couldn't study properly. He thinks that he need a physical interaction. He thinks that he need physical experiment. That need to do some clinical research to truly understand what's going on. And this is where I think this kind of system, they call it Oroma VR, or also known as Onyx system. So this kind of system, they do what? They prepare a visual patient, and they're going to prepare a visual tutor in that VR. So imagine you're going putting on your VR, and you're getting into a new reality where you can feel everything. You know how you feel it? Because the modules that you're wearing on your hand, those things got hundreds of sensors and vibration motor that makes you feel like touching the real thing. And also it can sense the perfect movement, so it can guide you if you're doing anything wrong. So this kind of system is really good, and really, how to say, it's the how science and technology contributed itself for today. So I think that's amazing, and I think that's all I have for all the points that I think that our science and technology can contribute. And to sum it up, I would like to say we are right now in a new world, a new norm, an education from a virtual platform. And this virtual platform is something that we can say is sudden and drastic change, where even though we used to have it, but suddenly now everyone have to do it and join it. And this is something that I think is something that we have to get used to, this perfect norm. But this kind of norm is more approachable and more affordable. Just imagine being at home, and you can learn about video editing, maybe photography or computer, on all those other soft skills you want to learn just at the comfort of your home. You don't even have to get shower, but I always recommend to get showered first. So this kind of stuff is where I think we are at a perfect medium, a perfect alternative solution. And besides that, I would like to say we are living in a world of pandemic where it all seems dark and sad. But what I can say is science and technology is shining the light a little bit by little bit. And I'm pretty sure one day the night is going to turn to the day. So that's all from me, Azrul. Please take over.
All right, for sure. Wow, there is for sure a lot of major changes and contribution for this pandemic in education. For example, as you mentioned earlier, like the VR learning, AR, and yeah, I know about the game Assassin's Creed. I play it as well, and I learned a lot about history. And yeah,
All right.
I agree with your point. All right, thank you, Hari, for your great sharing. Next up is that economically, our country has gone through many changes due to this pandemic. There are also plenty of financial aids given to people during this pandemic. Can I call out Hashwini to tell us what are the contribution of science and technology that covers the economic sector during the pandemic?
Sure, Azrul. Well, first of all, thank you for everyone who had attended this forum. Okay, so let me talk about what is the overall situation in the economic sector and then about the effects as well as the steps taken in terms of science and technology to lessen the impact of the negative effects. Okay, so the contribution of science and technology at this time of pandemic and of the policies and institutions that promote them is not limited to prevention or treatment of disease. The pandemic has revealed the need for an approach that goes beyond national borders and strengthens regional integration based on science and technology systems that are linked among countries and among their production systems. The pandemic has forced us to adapt to new ways of working, attending classes, and socializing with one another. What we seek is to put science and technology at the service of people, to open a new space of development with new sectors, services, and products, development related to production and technology. Okay, let's now discuss on the effects of COVID-19 on the global economy. So globally, we saw that firms were affected differently by the crisis depending on the sector of their activity, especially the tourism and leisure industries, as well as manufacturing firms reliant on global supply chains. Um, in May 2020, Airbnb, the largest peer-to-peer platform for accommodation rental, also announced it would lay off roughly 25% of its staff, which is 1,900 people. Uber and Lyft in America, the two largest ride-sharing firms, also announced they would lay off around 14% and 16% of their global workforce, which is around 3,700 and 982 people respectively. So what we see is that firms, these companies that are meant for tourism, leisure industries, and as well as manufacturing companies, they have gone through a very rough time since the pandemic has started because of the supplies, because of the movement control order, not only in our country but also around the world. Besides that, we also saw financial constraints due to sharp reductions in demand, supply chain disruptions, and the slowdown in investor funding. Uh, Affect investments in research and innovation as well. Uncertainties regarding the recovery also discourage these investments because we don't know when things would go back to normal. For businesses, aside from disruptions to research and operations, sharp decrease in demand, liquidity constraints, and supply chain disruptions challenge their very survival in some case. Innovative digital businesses and their solutions, however, saw an unprecedented uptake and boost in this rather peculiar context. We will talk about that later. The nature of the COVID-19 shock, and in particular whether the shock is only temporary or long-term, likely to result in another shock or represents a new normal, will affect the long-term impacts on science and technology ecosystems as well. Long-term impacts may lead to opportunities to restructure and implement changes, drastic changes, but could also lead to reduced financial resources for industry and government to implement transformations. In our country, however, the pandemic had its fair share of devastating effects on the Malaysian economy from both external factors like the global supply and demand shocks and domestic factors which is MCO, Movement Control Order. Critically, this proportionately impacted smaller businesses and vulnerable groups such as lower income individuals and unemployed individuals. First, Long before the partial lockdown measures in Malaysia, the outbreak of the new coronavirus in China had created a wide ranging supply and demand shocks that have reverberated across the globe. Since coronavirus started in China and Wuhan, they implemented lockdown in their very own country. Since lockdown happened there, there were a lot of supply reduction, and mainly because most of our Malaysian companies are very reliant on China-based products. I will talk about that soon. Commodity exporters around the world braved lower prices as China demand collapsed, while global manufacturers faced production cuts as China factories were locked down. Additionally, over the past decade, Malaysian companies, have become amongst the most deeply integrated in the global production networks. This is compounded by the fact that the regional supply chains have become increasingly China-centric, like I said previously. Most of our companies are very reliant on China-made products that when China had its lockdown, we were suffering even before we had coronavirus in our country. Indeed, more than a quarter of Malaysia-China trade, which is around in back in 2018, it was around 20 billion US dollars, is made up of intermediate components, which is exactly the kind of products that gets affected the most when global supply chains are disrupted. On a macro level, the closure of businesses and services, along with the travel and movement controls, had outsized impacts on private consumption and business investment. Its adverse effects on individual livelihoods and businesses were even more pernicious. Individuals and businesses affected by the temporary closures were and still at risk of facing high immediate cash flow constraints as their earnings dwindle. Most of the earnings that they get, it's just enough to put back into their business to get the business running that they for their livelihood. There's none, or it's the other way around. Critically, these liquidity squeeze were disproportionately felt by small and medium enterprises, which is called SMEs, and vulnerable groups such as lower income individuals, part timers, and unemployed workers. This can have knock on effects on the entire economy, leaving businesses insolvent, individuals bankrupt, and the financial system saddled with non performing loans. However, unlike the global financial crisis in 2018 and the Asian financial crisis in 1997, Malaysia's COVID-19 crisis is a public health crisis first and an economic crisis second, which means even economists have generally agreed that the economic policy should focus mainly on bolstering public health efforts in handling the pandemic while ensuring the welfare of the people and businesses. So as we saw the negative impacts of COVID-19, science and technology had actually played the biggest role in overcoming all of that, since face-to-face interactions, traveling domestically and internationally have been restricted. The immediate science and technology policy responses focused on keeping innovative businesses afloat. For example, facilitating access to finance by innovative firms and startups, and helping researchers and research institutions adapt to new contexts. This is according to OECD. Many countries had also launched broader stimulus packages to boost the economy. The key role of science and technology to address COVID-19 also offer opportunities to make science and technology more inclusive by attracting talent from diverse backgrounds, minority groups, and unemployed graduates. So through the usage of making use of science and technology, this had created like an opportunity for people who have basic talent with science and technology to really shine, to really come up with great ideas to really overcome this economical problem. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic is accelerating the adoption of digital products, particularly those that are easy to build, easy to buy, install, and use, and do not require physical interactions. These include video conferencing, example Microsoft Teams, Zoom, digital collaboration tools like Slack, video streaming like Netflix and Amazon Video, online shopping like Amazon, Shopee, Lazada, online learning, telemedicine, online gaming, and digital fitness apps. Firms providing such products have seen rapid increase in demand and have rapidly reacted by providing product updates to improve their user experience. Such product has some advantages. Uh, they are often cheaper than their physical equivalents, require no travel or commute nor waiting time to use them. And therefore, for some users, the shift may become permanent. Not only that, an increasing uptake of innovations has also been observed among traditionally low-tech industry segments, such as retailers, restaurants, museums, and theaters that have in some cases rapidly adopted online tools in order to maintain part of their activities. Example, being able to receive digital orders and organizing home delivery, offering virtual visits to museum and also streamed performances. Big digital tech firms have seen increase in benefits. So Amazon had revenues of 75.4 billion US dollars in the first quarter of 2020, which was more than 33 million per hour, 33 million US dollar per hour, boosted by a surge in online ordering from customers locked down at home. Um, Google's Alphabet saw sales rise by 13% in the first quarter of 2020 compared with the same period last year. Zoom, the online video conference platform, had more than 300 million meetings per day in April 2020, up from 10 million in December 2019. Netflix, a video streaming provider, added 16 million new subscribers in the first quarter of 2020. So, new market needs may also spur business innovations, like accelerate automation, improve processes to increase resilience to shocks in global supply chains, as well as foster innovative and entrepreneurship in these areas. Alibaba, a Chinese e-commerce giant, is rolling out autonomous delivery systems. Pony AI, a Chinese autonomous vehicle startup, has repurposed its fleet and launched a self-driving deliver service in Irvine, California. Google is using its wing drones to deliver medicines to the rural parts of Virginia. The service had been running a test program since like October 2019 and saw a rapid increase in requests for deliveries since the COVID-19 outbreak began. The rapid uptake of digital tools by businesses, as well as the larger scale deployment of digital and data driven innovations, is expected to increase the demand for tech talent and workers with different levels of digital skills. Topcoder, an on-demand tech talent platform, has already seen an increase in activity since the start of the COVID-19 crisis. Next, with the physical movements now limited, the few means of connecting with the outside world is through internet. Like today, we are having this forum through internet. This will highlight the vast difference between offline and online businesses in terms of customer reach and ultimately businesses survival. At the end of the day, that's what the most important thing is, especially during this time of this crisis. That said, this pandemic also served as a catalyst for the massive crossover from an offline to online business and a wake-up call for businesses to adopt the new technology. Because now businesses have no choice but to actually rely on technology if they want their business to survive during this whole crisis. Over 98.5% of business establishments in Malaysia are small and medium enterprises, SMEs. And in the past, their digital adoption and desire to implement technological solutions were actually low. Because at that time, it's obviously easier to deal businesses or to run businesses face to face. But at this time of pandemic and at this time of crisis, that is not the near possibility that we have. So moving forward, Malaysian businesses should ensure an online presence at the earliest viable opportunity while adopting relevant emerging technologies under the Fourth Industrial Revolution (4IR) umbrella to ensure long-term sustainability. So those are all the effects of the pandemic on our economy and the way science and technology were utilized to solve those issues. That's all from me. Thank you. Over to Azrul.
Right. Thank you, Hashwini, for the remarkable sharing from your side. Well, I need to agree that nowadays, our economy in our country is gotten a little bit down, but then suddenly there are many businesses, and we as people who love to buy and video shopping, yes, just log on to the Shopee and just buy things. That's increase economy a little bit. I guess that's much more of it. Moving on to the next segment, where the crucial matters appear. Just because of this COVID-19, the health sector has come up with tremendous ways to help the citizens avoid this murderous virus. I would love to welcome Matthew to present to us the contribution of science and technology that assists the health sector, especially in this pandemic. As you please.
Thank you, Azrul. So yes, it's true. The health sector has greatly developed and it has greatly advanced over the past few decades. So why do we need to talk about the health sector? Like, what is the importance of the health sector? As you all know, the health sector is the forerunner. It is the one that is at the very front of our current battle against COVID-19. We have the doctors, we have the nurses, we have the healthcare professionals. All of them are basically the frontliners. And then at the back, we also have those behind the scenes. We have all the researchers, we have all those who are working in labs, also day and night, in order to come up with a solution as to how we as one collective race can beat COVID-19 once and for all. So, science and technology has greatly made lives better in the healthcare sector, and most of them are technology that we actually use in our daily lives. So let me begin off with something fairly simple, something that we can all relate with. So, contactless thermometers. This is something you cannot run away from. Every time you decide to step out of the house, every time you decide to go and eat out with your friends, decide to go for a quick shopping spree, there is always a contactless thermometer present. So this is actually an advancement from the thermometers we used previously, which were contact-based. There is a slight advantage over contactless, because one thing is contact thermometers are exactly on your skin. So you're going to be getting more or less an accurate reading compared to contactless, where there is a gap of air in between. But why do we need contactless thermometers during times like COVID? One of the primary sources is because COVID spreads through transmission, and transmission can also mean through physical contact. So physical contact is completely barred in these days. If you can see, we're even discouraged from shaking hands. So we have to reduce physical contact as much as we can. So what we decide to do is we decide to come up with contactless thermometers. Now, don't get me wrong, contactless thermometers have been around for a very long time, but they've been more or less used in fields of research and also fields of experimentation. So now that we're using it in daily life, the effort is so much easier and the effects are also very, very effective. However, even knowing that the technology is there to help us detect, to help us prevent potential outbreaks, are we using that technology properly? Are we using it as it was intended to? Because you know as well as I do, not every single person knows that the contactless thermometer apparently only works on your forehead. I've seen countless numbers of people going up to the thermometer scanner and just putting their hand in front of it, like it's supposed to read their fingerprint. I've also seen many people taking up their phones and putting it. I've even seen, this is not a false story, I've actually seen someone carrying their pet dog trying to go in. They just put the dog in front of the thermometer. So I don't know if it was a joke, it was just like lighthearted or anything, but the fact that that happens shows that there's still people who don't understand the importance of these seamless small things. The main reason why we're having contactless thermometers in the first place is because one of the easiest ways we can find a potential sign of COVID-19 is through fever outbreaks, increasing in body temperature. So this is something we can't see on the outside, but thermometers will more or less give you the indication if there's anything wrong. So if we do not use the technology that has been given to the best of its ability, we are actually shooting ourselves in the leg. We've been given a gift. We've been given the technology that could help prevent outbreaks. But instead of using it, we're using it to either joke around or we completely disregard it. So I'm here to tell you that contactless thermometers, after so many months of seeing that thing, after so many months of probably forcing yourself to pick up that gun and to aim it at your forehead, think about it. It's actually for a good thing. All right. It helps people around you and it helps you to know if there's anything wrong. So don't take it like it's such a big chore. If you're going to go outside, stepping outside these days is practically putting your lives on the line because you don't know where the virus is. You can't see it. So at least if a way is provided for us to handle it, to mitigate that effect, to at least reduce the risk of us going to a place that is virus prone, I think we should take it. Stepping on to the same point, we have the My Sejahtera app. So now, during the outbreak, when MCO first started, we even key in information anymore. All it takes is less than 3 seconds of a QR code scanning. Once you scan the QR code, everything is good to go. You can go in and you have that assurance. Seconds of a QR code scan is good to go. You can go in that if anything happens, the government, the health ministry, the healthcare workers, they know how to trace it back to you. The health ministry, rest assured, the authorities have your details. They know where to find you. So you do not need to be in a state of panic or you do not need to worry, which is why it is so important. And also remember that the technology is given to us. I cannot reiterate enough. It is important for us to know how to use it properly, including the My Sejahtera app. It is one per person. To put in an example, if you travel in a group of 10, you do not represent that group of 10. So not just one person scan and everyone goes in. That's not how the app works. The same way where you need to manually take per person for the temperature scanning, the same thing goes for My Sejahtera. Use it. It is a bit of a hassle, but is it a hassle for you to scan and put yourself on the safe side or for you to contract the disease and have no way of finding out where you get it from? So think about it. The trade-off is worth it. A little bit of hassle for a bit more assurance that you're on the safe side. So that is a very common application of how science and technology has greatly evolved into our normal lives and made healthcare so much more easier because contact tracing now is a walk in the park. If there are outcares, so much more easier because contact tracing now is a walk in the park. If there are outbreaks, we can easily find out who was there. We can find out what time it happened. We can find out practically everything about that location. And it's all from just a single app, which doesn't even require much effort, just a fill in of information. And after that, it's just an effortless ride. So another advancement of science and technology that we can see today is the vaccine. Now, if all of you are keeping up to date with what's on the newspapers, with what's coming out on the television and the news, you would know that the vaccine is a very heated topic right now. So I'm here to tell you just generally what the vaccine is about because there's a lot of misconceptions of what a vaccine is. There's a lot of questions as to how effective the vaccines are, and they are actually valid questions because you are in the midst of a pandemic. So if someone offers you a solution that is like people say too soon, so it's only normal for you to be suspicious of it. But if you know the science behind it, then more or less it might help to quell that worriness in you. So without going too much into biological sense, the simple way of what a vaccine does is a medicine, the drugs that you take in, not the normal drugs, but the drugs you get from the pharmacies, the function of those medicines are to help you heal after you've contracted the virus. So that is post-care. What do we do with vaccines is vaccines provide you a preemptive care. So vaccine basically consists of the virus, the exact virus that you are expected to get, but it's weakened or it's dead or it's just components of that virus. So when we inject ourselves with the weakened part of that virus, what we are doing is we're actually helping our body to identify the virus and to come up with a defense solution for it. So to put it in simple terms, every time you get a vaccine for something, you're basically giving your body a spoiler. It's a spoiler about the virus that is to come. So your body can prepare a defense for it. So let's say worst comes to worst, after you're vaccinated, somehow you are infected with the COVID-19. Your body already knows what the virus is. It has already prepared a defense plan for it. So that means the likelihood of you getting severely ill is very low. So that is what the vaccine does. It gives you the preemptive care instead of the post-emptive care like normal medicines. However, immunity also comes importantly from vaccines because when you are inoculated, when the people of your community have received their vaccines, they've been inoculated, we will have something known as the herd immunity. So herd immunity is important because you're no longer talking about you as an individual, but you are talking about the collective community itself. So when everyone in the community or the majority of them are vaccinated, so the chances of the virus spreading between that community is very low. So that greatly helps in order to reduce the chances of COVID-19. So yes, there are questions of it, but the one more good advantage of science and technology in healthcare is that information is now readily available for everyone. So if you do not want to believe what I said about vaccines, well, I am a physics student after all, I'm not a genetic student or biological student, fine. The information is there for you to make your own research and to do your own judgment. So it's perfectly fine if you don't want to listen to me, but remember that the internet, this technology, this particular piece of technology has provided you with everything you need to know, be it scientific research, be it the properties of vaccines, or even the research studies of vaccines. Back in the days, you would have very limited information about what's going on. But today, you can see that information is so readily available. That's what science and technology has done for us. It has given us the ability to know anything we want from any parts of the world. So if you want to make your own research, if you want to decide for yourself whether a vaccine is good or not in your opinion, please, by all means, the information is there for you. All that's left is for you to explore it, for you to use it to the best of benefit. So there's even questions as to like, how did the vaccine come out so quickly? Because in Malaysia or even like in the world, we are only reaching our like 1 year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic. So how did a vaccine come up so quickly? Well, that's because of the advancements in the instruments we use in the lab. Back in the days, we were limited to very, very, very limiting equipment. We had the standard microscopes, we had standard sampling techniques. All these work, but they take a tediously long time. And that will have a very bad impact, especially in a virus that is spreading as quickly as COVID-19. So, to know something, the main issue here is that after the outbreak in Wuhan, 1 month later, that's just 1 month, a team of researchers in the Shanghai laboratory managed to come up with the entire genome structure of the virus. So after they came up with this virus structure, what they did was they put it online. They sent it to labs all around the world. So from that point onwards until today, it is not talking about an individual effort. We're not even talking about single corporations, but we're talking about health departments. We're talking about private think tanks. We're talking about everyone from all around the world coming together to work on this information for the benefit of mankind. So we're not even talking like pharmaceutical companies and all. We're talking basically anyone who has the power to make a change, anyone who has the ability to conduct research in a safe environment. Every single one of them are involved. So this shows us how greatly of an advantage we have. Because back then we did not have this advantage. Information sharing was very limited. We didn't have the internet. We only had traditional posts, and that would take forever. But today with the internet, what we find out here today can reach all the way across the world by tomorrow. So that greatly helps us in our battle, because COVID-19, as much as we know about it, there's still a lot that we don't know about it. As we can see, there's a lot of mutation. So the virus itself is constantly changing. So the only way that we can keep up with those changes is by conducting our own researches, by making sure that we are step up and we are up to date as well. So that is why vaccines are very important, and that is how we can produce vaccines so quickly. The advancement in technology, the way we have better equipment, now we have electron microscopes. We've come a long way from the days of the traditional lab microscopes. We have cryo-EM techniques using liquid nitrogen. So all these are advanced techniques that greatly give us the upper hand. So then, we also have other efforts, such as the main key idea that happened back in the days was that when the COVID pandemic first started, we started running out of personal protective equipment. A lot of them were being channeled to the public, because to protect the public is the first case. But it was at the disadvantage of the healthcare workers. The frontliners started facing problems where they have a shortage of all this equipment. So what happened was, back in the United States, back in the countries that are highly developed, they came up with this idea of, why don't we use 3D printing? Now, 3D printing is not a new technology. It's been around for a long time, but it usually has very specific purposes. We don't use it to generate healthcare equipment. But given this pandemic and given the state of desperation we found ourselves in, we actually used 3D printing to print out more personal protective equipment, and we are just supplementing the mass production of it. So that is an advantage, because we're not just creating anything new, but we are using a ready-made technology for a whole new function, and that has greatly benefited us. So now, just before you all decide to flip out your phones and like go on to Shopee or Lazada to find out where you can get your own 3D printer, these things cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, because they are professional equipment. So maybe leave the heavy lifting to the professionals, but that doesn't mean you guys don't play a part as well. Because like I said before, COVID-19 is a battle not fought only by the elite, not fought only by the frontliners, but fought by everyone on earth. So when it comes down to us, the technology has been given to us. Like even like what Hari said before, in terms of education, we might be at a disadvantage because we're at homes, especially for like medical students, because they need that hands-on practical. But with VR, virtual reality, with augmented reality, we are bringing technology into healthcare and we are helping these students to make sure that they don't fall back on their studies. So all these future doctors, these future healthcare providers, they are in safe hands because the technology today enables them to get equally good or perhaps even better in terms of how good they are and how well of an education they receive. So all these shows that technology has come a long way. Healthcare has greatly improved all thanks to technology. Science has been a backbone in terms of fighting these pandemics. So my thing I want to say to you in terms of the last word is don't look at this in a bad way. Yes, every evening when you look at the news, when you look at your Twitter and you see the numbers come out in the thousands, it might seem bad. For now, yes. But ladies and gentlemen, remember that just a few months ago, we managed to hit 0 local cases. So we did it once. What is stopping us from doing it again? Now that we've learned from our mistakes, I hope we learned from our mistakes. Now that we know what happened and we are taking lessons from it, so definitely, it is going to be a time-consuming process. But if we all have the same attitude, if we all play our own individual parts, we can definitely do it. So yeah, in closing, science and technology has brought us far, but remember that we also have a part to play. Science and technology can only go to a certain extent. The finishing leg of the race is up to us. So thank you very much.
Wow. Give a clap first. All right. So actually, to be honest, I am very surprised that our science and technology is battling the pandemic with numerous technologies and medicals. For example, like Matthew said earlier, the vaccine itself, the 3D printing, which quite expensive, but it's okay, leave them to the professional. Okay, and yeah, the most important is My Sejahtera app. I guess that we as a, you know, as a human being should follow the SOP, and don't forget to scan when you leave the house or never leave your house. Okay, all right. Thank you. I really appreciate your sharing, Matthew. Thanks a lot. All right. So now, as we all can see, that is how important science and technology is, especially during the devastating attack of COVID-19 on everyone. Now, I know that every one of you is aware that the changes of pre and post of COVID-19. So let's compare together the situation that we face before and after contribution of science and technology that are really readily available to us. Yashvin, can you help us to compare?
So hello and good evening, everyone. Can I just confirm, Azaro, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I heard you clearly.
Okay, cool. So again, hello and good evening, everyone. I'm Yashvin. What I'll be doing today is comparing the science and technology used in battling our pandemic versus the science and technology used to battle previous pandemics. A bit of a comparison of before and after. Why is that important? Because by comparing previous pandemics and ours, we know how we have it now compared to before. We know what technologies we have, we know the scientific advancements we have, and we know how it has helped us thus far. So what I'm going to do today is, in my sharing is a bit of a historical point of view as well as some statistics and a bit of comparison for you tonight. So everybody, this is not our first pandemic as humankind, right? Humankind has dealt with many epidemics before and pandemics that have spread to the rest of the world. So in the recent centuries, this has come to teach humanity each time over how to deal with our problems and fight the pandemic for our collective good. But let's take a bit of a look at what a pandemic really is. So according to the World Health Organization, a pandemic is a worldwide spread of a new disease. So what really is behind the word pandemic itself? So let's take a look at the etymology of the word pandemic. The word pandemic is an English word. However, its roots are from Greek. So the word pan means all, and the word demos means people or crowd, both in Greek. So together it means all people or all crowd. So a pandemic is actually a disease that affects a lot of people. So there are a lot of terminologies that come up when pandemics and public health issues come. So let's take a look at the differences between these terms that we can see in these situations. So a pandemic is an epidemic that spread over multiple countries or continents. An endemic is something that belongs to a particular people or country. An epidemic is a disease that affects a large number of people within a community, population, or region. And an outbreak is a greater than anticipated increase in the number of endemic cases. So you see there's actually a difference between all of these terms. So we have to be careful which one we use. Because, like by the Organization, the general, a pandemic is not a word to use lightly or carelessly. It is a word that, if misused, can cause unreasonable fear or unjustified that the fight is over, leading to unnecessary suffering and death. So we must be very careful with the words that we use. But when we realize that this is a pandemic, then we must do our best to fight it. So today I'll be comparing pandemic to past pandemics in terms of science and technology. But first of all, let me tell you a bit about a few pandemics that we've had before, because like I've mentioned before, this is not our first pandemic. So 100 years ago, or rather 102 years ago, we started to have the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918. The 1918 influenza pandemic was the most severe pandemic in recent history. It was caused by a H1N1 virus with genes of avian origin, meaning it came from birds. Although there is not there's not universal consensus regarding where the virus came from, it spread worldwide in 1918 and 1919. So it was roughly 100 years ago. So it seems that even 100 years ago, we had to fight a pandemic as well. In the United States, it was first identified in military personnel in spring 1918, and it is estimated that about 500 million people, or a third of the population of the whole world at the time, became infected with the virus. That's a lot of people, relatively compared to the population. And the number of deaths was estimated to be at least 50 million worldwide. So the next pandemic that I wish to highlight is the HIV/AIDS pandemic. The HIV/AIDS pandemic, or the human immunodeficiency virus, is considered by some experts to be a global pandemic. However, the World Health Organization currently uses the term global epidemic to describe HIV. As of 2018, approximately 37.9 million people were infected by HIV globally, and there were about 770,000 deaths from AIDS in 2018. Since the first case of HIV/AIDS was reported in 1981, this virus, although rare, it continues to be one of the most prevalent and deadly pandemics worldwide. The CDC, or Center for Disease Control, HIV disease continues to be a serious health issue for several parts of the world. There were about 1 million new cases of HIV reported in 2018. About 37.9 million people were living with HIV around the world in 2018, and 24.5 million of them were receiving medicines to treat HIV called ART, or antiretroviral therapy. In addition, roughly an estimated 770,000 people died from AIDS-related illnesses in 2018. So moving on to my next example, the cholera pandemic. Did you know that in the recent few hundred years, we've had 7 cholera pandemics? That's a lot. So the 7th cholera pandemic, or the most recent one, which happened in 1961 to 1975, was the 7th major outbreak of cholera and occurred principally from the year 1961 to 1975. The strain involved persists to present. That means that the same strain that infected people in 1961 is still here today. In 1971, the number of cases reported worldwide was 155,000. In 1991, it reached 570,000. The spread of the disease was helped by modern transportation and mass migration. Mortality rates, however, dropped markedly as governments began modern preventative measures, and the usual mortality rate of 50% dropped to only 10% in the 1980s and less than 3% in the 1990s. So now that I've told you a bit about the previous pandemics that we've had, other than COVID-19, let me tell you a bit about a comparison of the technologies that we've had, science and technology that we've had previously versus what we have now, in terms of the 3 things that we discussed previously in this forum, which are education, economy, and health, as well as integrating communication as well. So, like what has been mentioned by Hari talking about education, right? We have a lot of technologies now that we use for education. However, one that we cannot take for granted to use in education as well as communication in general is the smartphone. So the smartphone is a mobile device that combines cellular and mobile computing functions into one unit, and they are distinguished from feature phones by their stronger hardware capabilities and extensive mobile operating systems, which facilitate wireless software, internet over mobile broadband, and multimedia functionality. That means that they can use music, videos, cameras, gaming, all of this can be done on the modern smartphone. So alongside core functions, such as, of course, a phone should be able to do voice calls and text messaging, right? So what did we have before we had smartphones? So we only had smartphones in the recent, maybe say 15 years. So, 25 years. So we've only had smartphones since 1994 when they were invented. However, it is still not as advanced as the smartphones that we have today. Before that, what did people do? They gave telegraph messages, they wrote letters to each other, but that is not as effective as today's technologies, right? Because imagine having to teach a whole class of students, but they cannot meet you because you're having a pandemic. So nowadays, we can just use Zoom, we can use Google Meet, we can use Microsoft Teams. However, you can't write a letter to every student in the class and expect them to fulfill a whole curriculum worth of studies. Moving to things that have been stated by Hari, like VR and AR, distance learning, uses of animation and educational games to teach people about things that they want to learn, such as history, coding, etc. But one very important thing that we should not take for granted as well is the media, news, and internet. The internet is a hugely helpful tool that has helped us for the past few decades to advance ourselves as people. It gives us infinite knowledge at our fingertips. And with internet, we also have media such as television, we have social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have news outlets on the social media and on mainstream media. And all of these keep us informed, they keep us happy, they keep us entertained, because entertainment keeps us sane too. We can't just sit around and do nothing knowing that, there's a virus out there. So a bit of distraction goes a long way. So moving on to the economy part of it, right? So just like Hashwini said earlier, uh, that the economy must go on. We must always do something about the economy. Even when it's crashing, we must try our best to allow the economy to continue to work as it should. And money will always be redirected. For example, companies like Airbnb will lose money due to the pandemic because there are less people staying in hotels, versus Netflix as an entertainment company gaining more money because it is more useful during the pandemic, where people have less things to do, and or at least they had less things to do during lockdown, and they can entertain themselves by using Netflix. Just like the other panelists also mentioned, there are apps like MySejahtera and Selangkah which keep the economy moving as well. Because apps like MySejahtera and Selangkah allow contact tracing to be done easily and conveniently. This gives us confidence to be able to proceed with businesses being open and running as usual. And as long as premises follow the law and continue to enforce registration of citizens entering any business premise, then we can know that we are at least to some extent safe. Or even if we get infected with the virus, we know where it came from, because the government can do contact tracing and tell us where we got it from. So at least we have that certain amount of confidence when we go out of the house that everything is better than it could be without this technology. And of course, the other topic of telecommuting. So hand in hand with communication, right? Various apps like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, and so on allow many working people to avoid having to leave their homes to fulfill their job requirements, and can therefore work from home. So not everybody can do this. Some jobs require hands-on meeting people, but a lot of people can actually do their job from home. And when they can do so and have the technology to fulfill their job and their work scope from home, and they have apps that facilitate them doing so, then it is much easier to prevent the economy from going onto a halt. So moving on to the health aspect, right? So like Matthew said before, there are a lot of advancements that have come up in the health aspect as well, such as the structural biology. We have, now we have the technology to find out exactly how viruses look, the electron microscope. We know the toxins they produce. We know their genetic material. We know all of this much easier and much faster than before, or like say 100 years ago. So 100 years ago, we didn't have the electron microscope. 100 years ago, we didn't have PCR. So what is PCR? PCR, or polymerase chain reaction, or specifically the one that we use for COVID-19, is real-time polymerase chain reaction, was invented in 1984 by Carey Mullis. So this technology did not exist 100 years ago. 100 years ago, it was very, very difficult to come up with a very easy way to properly diagnose people, as all they could look at was the symptoms and nothing more. So they could be misdiagnosed and so on. But there are a few things as well that we have to appreciate nowadays, such as, okay, vaccination. Just like Matt said just now. So, vaccination is administration of a vaccine to help the immune system develop. Vaccines contain a microorganism or virus in a weakened, live, or killed state, or proteins or toxins from the organism in stimulating the body's adaptive immunity. They help to prevent sickness from an infectious disease. When a sufficiently large percentage of population has been vaccinated, herd immunity results. Herd immunity protects those who may be immunocompromised and cannot get a vaccine, because even a weakened version would harm them. So herd immunity means that when enough people in a community are immune to a virus, then it is less likely to spread to people who cannot take the vaccine or are unable to prevent themselves from getting sick because they're immunocompromised. So the first disease that people tried to prevent by inoculation was smallpox, and it was actually the first disease that was actually completely eradicated by the use of vaccines. So up to now, we don't have any more cases of smallpox. The only place you can find smallpox is in labs, because we keep it there for research purposes, but we don't allow it to be spread to people. Because of vaccination, it is successful, right? With the first recorded use of variolation occurring in the 16th century in China, it was also the first disease for which a vaccine was produced. Although at least 6 people had used the same principles earlier, the smallpox vaccine was invented in 1796 by an English doctor, Edward Jenner. So he was the first to publish evidence that it was effective and to provide the evidence on its production. In 1974, almost 200 years later, the World Health Organization adopted the goal of universal vaccination by 1990 to protect children against 6 preventable infectious diseases: measles, poliomyelitis, diphtheria, whooping cough, tetanus, and tuberculosis. So even though we didn't fully eradicate these diseases yet, even 30 years later in 2020, but we still have a lot of progress, a lot more than we had in 1974, 1990, because there are still a lot less people who are sick because of the vaccinations that have already occurred since then. Next is the use of surgical masks. So like PPE, such as Matt mentioned before. So surgical masks, the modern surgical masks began to be used in the 1960s. Their adoption caused cloth face masks, which have been used since the late 19th century, to completely fall out of use in the developed world. However, cloth masks and surgical masks both continue to be used in developing countries. So before the 1960s, people only used cloth masks. However, that was not completely safe to use. Maybe you guys have also seen the doctors in like the 18th century, the 19th century, the ones with the flu mask, the big pointy one. They look a bit scary. So that is what they use. They completely cover themselves, and they use gloves and so on to protect themselves. But today we have modern technology that helps us to do so with proper materials that don't allow us to get sick. So next, like Matthew mentioned, is the thermometer. So nowadays we have the contactless thermometers, right? But before this, we didn't. Before that, what we had was just the regular thermometers. So what did we have? The thermometer was invented in 1709 by Daniel Fahrenheit. That name should sound familiar. It was an enclosed glass tube that had a numerical scale called the Fahrenheit scale. So the earlier version had alcohol, but Fahrenheit in 1714 developed a mercury thermometer using the same scale. However, in 1964, Dr. Theodore Benzinger invented the ear thermometer, which was improved upon and normalized to use up until today. So we still use his invention from 1964. But today we use electronic thermometers and contactless thermometers, which are much better for use and more convenient in a pandemic. So we've talked about preventative measures. We've talked about how the virus and the pandemic affect our economy, the education, how we've evolved past it. But how do we actually treat the virus itself? So what we use to actually treat the virus is called antiviral drugs. So from 1972 to date, more than 50 viruses have been identified as etiologic agents of human disease. These new viral diseases have required more sophisticated therapeutic agents, but the problem is the development process of these strategies to this point has been slow and full of many hurdles. Antiviral chemotherapy has advanced at a snail-like pace, unlike antibiotics, which in 30 years achieved an advanced therapeutic stage. 34 years elapsed from the description of the antibacterial molecule salvarsan, the magic bullet, by Ehrlich in 1910, to tetracycline by Waxman in 1944. So in only 34 years, they've discovered so many types of antibiotics, but this is not the same for antivirals. It took almost 60 years for antiviral development to reach its current status of effectiveness. So what specific drug do we use for COVID-19, right? We use a drug called remdesivir. So when was this drug invented? How did we have it for a long time? The antiviral drug remdesivir was FDA approved in October 2020 to treat certain hospitalized patients with COVID-19. And scientists are working hard to develop other effective treatments. Therapies that are under investigation include drugs that have been used to treat autoimmune diseases, additional antiviral drugs, and antibodies from people who have recovered from COVID-19. Remdesivir is an investigational new drug created by a company called Gilead, and the research that led to remdesivir began as early as 2009. So earlier than that, even if we had a pandemic in 2003, 2004, like the epidemic of SARS and MERS, we did not have this broad spectrum drug. So it was originally used for hepatitis C and respiratory syncytial virus. So the company continued to explore various uses for remdesivir following its discovery, including antiviral profiling in 2013 and 2014, suggesting the potential for it to have a broad spectrum antiviral activity, meaning that the drug can be used for many viruses because it attacks the viruses in a general way. So now that we've looked at a lot of these things, in conclusion, what we have to do is appreciate science and technology. We continue to advance and progress in terms of science and technology, and life is much better now than before because of science and technology. Society and people will evolve to adapt to the situations around us, and we must remember that we are in a pandemic. So most importantly, we have to take care of ourselves and those around us for a better future. That is all from me. Thank you.
Alright, thank you Yashvin for the comparison. It was a really nice compare. But I think everyone have been waiting for this slot. Now, I am going to open the question and answer slot to everyone. If you have a question, you may raise your hand and turn on your microphone to ask the question to our dear panelists, or you may type out your question in the chat box. To the YouTube live viewers, you are welcome to submit your question through the chat box, and we will try to provide the answer here. Okay, right after this session, the QR code for the feedback form will be shown for your attendance. Don't worry about it, okay? So, let's get into the question. Oh, there are a lot of questions that have been attacked us. Alright, so let's see the first question from the chat box. I guess, okay. From Muse fan Otaku Dayo. A question or a glimpse of thought. Should legal action mandate against those who refuses COVID-19 vaccination in order to achieve a minimum of 70% herd immunity dot dot dot. Wow, question by Muse fan Otaku Dayo. I think he like anime. Okay, so I guess as the panelists have listened to this question, I think Matthew, can you answer this question?
Yes, definitely. Well, it's an interesting question. It's actually a question that needs to be answered as well. So I think I don't need to explain to you all too much about anti-vaxxers lah. So as you know, even before COVID-19, there's this whole thing going around about people who are specifically anti-vaccination, claiming that vaccination can cause autism, claiming that vaccines can cause Bell palsy. So all this is important to know that those are claims. Okay, so which was why back in my speech, I remember telling you the importance about making your own research, making sure that you understand and you make decisions for yourself. So in this question, right, what they're trying to say is, should legal action be amended? Now, in Malaysia, it's not really that clear yet because the first thing is we don't really have that vaccination being introduced. So that is probably a problem we're going to face next year. But for places like, let's say, the United States, they're actually facing this problem right now. For instance, in Germany and in places like even the Czech Republic, there's an entire argument, there's a debate going on in the Human Rights Court where the entire motion is pretty simple. If a citizen decides to refuse vaccination, is it or is it not his right to refuse it? So that is a valid question, and it's actually bringing forth the concept of human rights. Like, is it a human right question if you decide to refuse vaccination on your own reasons? Like, let's say you have your own personal beliefs or anything. So is that a valid reason for you to refuse vaccination? So as you know that herd immunity can only work when you have 70% and above. In fact, you can't have any lower than that because that would just beat the entire purpose. So in whether should legal action be amended, you can't just, to think of that is like already a radical step, which other countries are already considering. For example, in the United States, the US Food and Drug Administration, even CDC, they have already stated that companies can mandate their employees to undergo vaccination. Companies can. It is basically up to their own discretion. However, they did not apply that on a national scale yet. Why? Because it brings forth a battle of whether is it a violation of human rights or not. So one thing that before we ask whether legal action should be taken or not, the first question that we should ask ourselves is, why do this group of people exist? Like, why is there the ideology that a vaccine that is created to help us stay away from a virus is actually some government conspiracy or something that is just going to make us have an even worse disease? So that is actually the first step. Trying to ask whether legal action should be taken or not can be problematic because, in my opinion, if you decide to enforce something on a group of people who do not like it, that is just going to make the problem worse. Like, if they're already against it and you make it a national mandate that you must get vaccinated or your citizenship might get revoked, you might face legal action, you might go to jail, you might have to pay a fine. All this is just going to aggravate the situation. It's going to make it worse. So why should we take that path when we can first try to tackle the root cause? And the root cause is very simple: lack of education, or if not lack of education, misinformation. Especially with science and technology. We've been talking, this whole forum was about the advantages of science and technology, but we didn't talk much about the disadvantage of science and technology. And what happens is, with science and technology, with the internet, it is so easy for us to spread wrong information, to spread misinformation. Like anyone, basically anyone can come up and say any claim, as wild as it may seem. But if people start forwarding it, if people start liking it, if people start retweeting it, then everyone will start to listen about it. So the main step that you should take as an individual, before you think on a global scale or even a national scale, think individually. Why did you decide to believe a vaccine? Is it because you're believing it because of what people tell you, or because you believe in the science of it, or because you're just thinking that, hey, what else could go wrong? Everyone's already dying around me, might as well take a vaccine. So it is important for you to understand and to have that realization yourself. So legal action would most likely be a worst come to worst situation, a last resort. Let's say if and only if the situation becomes completely out of hand, where vaccination is the only possible choice, then in my opinion, that will become a viable option. But for now, we should not enforce this yet. We should not try to force this kind of things on people. We should at least stand from their point of view, not believing what they say, but seeing things from the way they see it. Because there has to be a reason so many people are believing that same thing, right? So it's not just one or two people. We understand the problem, we tackle the problem as rationally as we can, try to give understanding. But if worse comes to worse and we need to force a vaccination, well, that is the bridge we have to cross when we reach there. But for now, these kind of steps should not be focused on. We should focus on tackling these anti-vaxxers, because anti-vaxxers are a problem, not only on the West, where we used to make fun of the Western people thinking that, oh, it's only white people doing this. No. Everywhere, if you decide to open your eyes, it's not race specific, it's not gender specific, it's not even country specific. Everyone, everywhere, there are people who will go against something. So before you decide to talk about them, talk about yourself first. Make sure you yourself make your own rational understanding, make your own rational decision, and then we can talk about whether should we impose this idea on a group of all people. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew, for your answer. Well, I guess that's a lot of explanation for the question for answering the question. But I guess it's true. We should not forcing other to just make the result is to be like that. We should think rationalize, right? Okay, move to the next question, because there are a lot of questions and all of this question is just like a final exam to me. Okay, so the question is from, I have my personal assistant here. So the question is sounds like this. Do you think digital platforms will be permanent even after the pandemic ends? Okay, clear from that question? I guess I want to ask Hashwini. Can you answer that question?
Sure. Yes, Azrul. That's a good question. In my opinion, I feel like digital platform in some sectors would be permanent, but not in every sectors. Like I said just now, like businesses, like especially small businesses, they are seeing like a huge positive positive outcome from using digital platforms for their businesses. But that's not the same case like when it comes to like for us to learn, right? Like for us, like example, like we going through online classes using digital platform. Not every day is like a good day for us, right? So I don't think it is permanent overall. I think it will be somewhat like a starting point in business sectors to move to digital platforms. That is my opinion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hash. I hope for those who asked the question, satisfied with the answer. Okay, let's move to the next question. I see. I guess wait. All right. So from Hashvin Ravichandran, in your opinion, how do we deal with anti-vaxxers? Educating them seems to have no effect. So what do we do next? Eliminating them for the benefit of the entire human race, or letting them be? Okay, who are going to answer this? Harivaragan, are you up for this question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, good.
Right. Thank you, Azra. So, honestly, if you ask my opinion, I think this is question is like almost same with the first question that Matthew answered, right? It's about anti-vaxxer. Going to go back to the anti-vaxxer part, and that's question. So, again, based on my opinion, my own personal opinion, we can see there are pseudoscience, there are orgs, they're everywhere, right? They're going to give you fake facts. They're going to be people, BOMOs, so-called BOMOs, and they're going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you the world is flat, and they're going to tell you that the world is flat. They're going to tell you that the moon landing was staged. So they're going to tell you all this kind of pseudoscience, and you guys going to see through their facts that makes no sense at times. So yeah, there are going to be people like this. There are going to be people who are going to say no, and there are going to be people who are going to say yes. They're always going to be a contrasting type of people, right? But in my opinion, even mandatoring them for something like what Matthew said is wrong, because it is still a human right to accept that medicination, right? The medical. So let's say if I really don't want a vaccine, I would just say no, and that is really my right. But same thing is like it's like this. In this fact, the question when Ashwin says it says about um, I think he trying to man by eliminating is by killing them. And then I think this is like another level of cruelty. As a human, we should never we should never accept those kind of violence movement of killing peoples off. In my opinion, I think like exactly like what Matthew said, we just let them off with the facts that they believe. We just make sure we have prepare a proper education method in the generation coming, right? People are gonna go around that talking about immunity, talking about our vaccine comes in less than 1 year and all those kind of things. Even though Matthew just explained our vaccine are able to be developed at a shorter term of time, especially this our latest mRNA technology. But again, like I say, we have to let them and try to educate them in a proper way. We have to try to educate. We have to give a proper awareness. But one of my own personal opinion I can think of is that the reason why they don't want to accept vaccine is because they have fear. That's the reality. They are scared. They are scared that this kind of vaccine can cause them autism, can cause them to be a zombie. Basically, they can become a zombie if they're taking this vaccine. This is what they're believing. So what I can say is that we show them what true fear is. Maybe we can show them people who are really suffering out there with real virus health issue, like example like someone got a real COVID issue, right? We show them what are they suffering and how their whole family are suffering and how the society are suffering. If we're able to show those kind of fear towards them, maybe we can, or that kind of fear can overcome the fear of vaccine can cause autism and those kind of fake news. So I think again, to sum it up, Ashwin, I think yes, let's not eliminate them. And let's let them be. But we must never give up educating them, showing them awareness on different type of method. I think that is what humans should do, not give up. All right, I hope my answer answers the question. Is that okay, Azrul?
Yeah,
All
I
right, thank
agree
you.
with you too. Thank you, Hari. Yeah, not kill people, just agree with them. But don't forget to teach them. Okay, so next question will be from Kido99. Same year with me, I guess. So the question will be, what the most advancement in battling our pandemic as compared to previous pandemics? I guess Yash is ready to answer that question. Yash?
Hi again, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the most important technological advancement in battling our pandemic as compared to previous pandemics? My answer may surprise you, but in my opinion, it's vaccines. So let me justify to you why this is such. We have a lot of technological advancements and scientific advancements in battling our pandemic versus battling previous pandemics, right? So we've already highlighted a lot in terms of communication, in terms of education, in terms of economy, in terms of health. So seeing that this is a public health issue, um, of course, we want to focus on health-related technologies and science, and of course, we feel that like we should. I feel that that is the most important. I think the other panelists can agree as well. It's the most important thing because it's a health issue that we have today and this whole year, right? But why do I say, in my opinion, it's vaccines instead of like antiviral drugs and whatnot? Because yeah, antiviral drugs can treat the disease, and of course, there are other technologies that allow doctors to meet the patients by telecommuting. They don't even have to see the patients. There is like virtual diagnosis, which like doctors have to do. But prevention is better than one. It's a health issue and a public health issue, and two, prevention is better than cure. So that is why I feel that vaccines are the most important technological advancement in compared to previous pandemics, because we now have the most vaccines that we have as compared to before. We have different types of vaccines. We have mRNA vaccine, like other sorts of vaccines that depend specifically on the type of virus that we're trying to fight. So yeah, that is why I say, in my opinion, it's vaccine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Yashvin. Okay, guys, I guess that's all for question and answer slot. So right now, they will be show the QR code for the feedback form. Alright. So I hope everyone take notes about it, as it is crucial for your attendance and for claiming your e-certificate. Okay. To those the participant in Microsoft Teams, please stay in the meeting for a while for our photo session with our fantastic four panelists. Okay. Alright. So we let everyone, including the YouTube live, also scan the QR code. So, Hari, what are you doing next?
Hello there, yeah, Azrul. I don't know. I think it's been a busy day, so I
Mm-hmm.
gonna I also haven't take my dinner, right? So most probably gonna have a light dinner, chill
Mm-hmm.
out, and like what I used to say, I like playing video games. So I think you can